Post independence history of India. Very less worthy from the mains point of view. Okay, cost benefit analysis, when we do, there is a possibility of only one or two question, and sometimes there is no question in the mains examination from the post independence history. But from the overall developmental point of view, okay, from interview point of view, and no doubt mains point of view in other way around, okay, not directly there would be very less likely that one or two question would be there, but from the peripheral point of view, one who aspire to become civil servant must know the post independence history of India. Okay, there are so many aspects which are very crucial, which help you ancillary in order to attain better understanding of the events whatever happening right now in your contemporary world. Getting it, sir? So we won't take much classes for post independence history. We are just taking the glimpse of post independence history. You have to read on your own. Okay, we are just having a journey through it. It'll hardly take 3 lectures or 4 lectures. Just have a glimpse of it. We will discuss about the major events. Okay, so today's lecture is just to get a perspective about the challenges and triumphs of the new nation. Challenge and triumphs to the new nation. We got independence in 1947. We all know about it. And at the eve of independence, there were numerous challenges in front of the constitution maker as well as the government of the day. There are so many challenges. Today, in today's chapter, we'll discuss about those challenges, and we are describing the challenges into 3 parts. One is the short-term challenges, second mid-term challenges, and third one is the long-term challenges. And the decisions taken by the governments. So today we'll discuss about those things, the challenges. Now after that we will discuss prime minister wise tenures. It would be better to understand. Okay, initially we'll understand the Nehru's tenure, then Shastri's tenure, then we will discuss about the Indira Gandhi's tenure, then Rajiv Gandhi, and then the other prime ministers. Although in our foreign policy chapter we discussed about the things, we discussed about the foreign policy aspects under the different prime ministers. We also touched upon some of the aspects of the national politics with them. We'll discuss about all the national political part, the administrative development under the various prime ministers, and that would be done. Okay, remaining things you have to read from your own. Now the very crucial or very often students ask the source to prefer, which book to read. For post independence part, let me tell you, reading a book is not worth it if you have adequate amount of time, if you have enough time. Okay, if you have, let's guess you are preparing for 2027 or 2028, then you can read the book by the RC Guha, Ramchandra Guha, that is post independence history by RC Guha. Okay, there are 2 books, you can prefer whatever you want, whichever you want you can prefer. One by RC Guha, Ramchandra Guha, India after partition, India after Gandhi, actually this is the book. And another book is by Bipin Chandra, along with Mukherjee and some other writers. So any of the book you can prefer any one book, any one. Okay, either Bipin Chandra, because the book itself is very bulky. But very interesting book. If you will read line by line, you will find it very interesting. Okay, so somebody who is a very much geek and nerd kind of a student who read a lot can read 30-40 pages in one day with the 2 hours of sitting. Okay, that's the kind of storytelling. So you can read it 30-40 pages, but it's important, read the story in such a way so you can articulate whenever that story is required. Okay, don't read like a novel. Okay, so either RC Guha or the Bipin Chandra. Getting it, sir? To deeply understand the concepts of that time. Okay, should we go ahead? And somebody who is anybody who is appearing in 2026? Nobody is appearing, then you must read these books. Okay, Buy this book on the market, either RC Gua or Bipin. Both are very good book and comprehensively cover all the aspects. Don't need to go anywhere else. So, at the eve of independence, there were numerous challenges. Let's discuss about something, the challenges which India was facing at that time. So, 1947, India on the eve of independence. Now, we are dividing the challenges into three different heads: short-term challenges, medium-term challenges, and the long-term structural challenges. Long-term are usually called as structural challenges. So, when India achieved independence, the euphoria of freedom was tempered by the stark reality of the monumental changes. Okay, there was so many anticipation about the Indian democracy, that India will not survive because of the diversity, because of so many administrative loopholes which are left by the Britishers. The federal structure is not compatible with India. All the states will try to affirm their own autonomy. In that case scenario, it will not able to survive with this diversity, with this heterogeneity. It was, India just astound the world today that yes, even after the 75 years of democracy, India is still surviving without facing any military coup or something like that. Okay, so democratically we are very stable country today, and it always makes, stupendous surprise to the world that how can a country with this much heterogeneity can survive. Okay, so this always surprises the countries. You know, you know about China? China got independence after India in 1949. Okay, and after 1949, they had their own constitution. Now, what is the number of current constitution actually? Which number of constitution China is currently implementing? How many constitutions are there in India? Single constitution. We adopted and elected this constitution in 1950. Okay, we on 26 January we implemented it. So since 26 January 1950, we never had any constituent assembly. We never had any new constitution. We are just going up with the same constitution. It's this itself is an achievement. Why? Because the China, which is considered one of the most stable country in the world, China is having the third constitution since independence. It is the third constitution of China since 1982. Okay, which is the constitution number for Pakistan? Pakistan is also on the third constitution. Okay, Pakistan is also having the third constitution. Okay, so now the point is India is having a single constitution. Means somewhere the constitutional credential of India are very strong and strong enough to take into consideration the aspirations of each and every citizen and the sections of society. This is the beauty of Indian constitution. That is it is not about assimilation; it's about accommodation. Okay, you should not assimilate everybody, but you must accommodate everybody. If you're starting assimilating everybody, then there is a possibility you might impose your majoritarian culture on the minorities. It's not only about religion, it's not only about caste, it's not only about regions, it's not only about genders. Okay, the cultural assimilation somewhere might create the trouble. If you accommodate everybody with the spirit of the secularism, with the spirit of the accepting the diversity, going up with the salad ball concept rather than the melting pot, then ultimately you will make India the country which we are aspiring. These were the thoughts of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, you must go with the accommodation rather than assimilation. Okay, you must understand this. So accommodate and acknowledge the diversity. If you don't acknowledge it and give the constitutional protection to the diversity, this is the beauty of Indian Constitution. That Indian Constitution maker not only taken into consideration the history of India, the culture of India, but they also taken into consideration how India should be socialized in the upcoming time. They have taken into consideration all these things. So the political socialization with the help of putting up the directive principle of state policy within the Constitution of India. Okay. Also, on the other hand, the history, the rich history of India, what we learned from the colonial legacy, what we learned from the contemporary world, and what can be the possible progressive ideas which are supposed to be inculcated in the not so progressive society. It's important to understand. Indian society was obscurantist. Indian society had the element of superstition. So you cannot just go with the with your ancient culture. Take the ancient culture into consideration so that you can legitimize the things, because legitimacy is somewhere lent by the people only when their emotions, their culture will be respected. So on one hand, the constitution maker took into consideration the cultural aspect in order to legitimize it. On the other hand, they also taken into consideration the modern liberal aspects so that society can be liberalized on the basis of the progressive Western political thought. So all these things have taken into consideration while framing the constitution. And this is the beauty of the constitution. This is how you legitimize the thing. This is how you make things more progressive without making despair of the masses, which are very much conservative. Are you getting me? This is the beauty of the constitution. That's why constitution need to be protected every time whenever somewhere any element, for example, the communalism, for any example, the regionalism, for any example, some sort of separatism or the seceding away tendency. Whenever these tendencies come, there is a one thing which stands like the, like standing like a rock in order to safeguard the Indian unity and the territorial integrity, and that is the Constitution of India. You getting me, sir? So at that time, India was totally devastated in 1947 when India got independence. Okay, India's production base was destroyed because this was the economic impact of the British. There was a wealth drain. There was a wealth drain. We studied about the wealth drain in the modern history. So one of the things is the wealth drain. On the other hand, there are so many other things which India was facing at that point of time. For example, when you take the economic head, there was no production. Most of the people are indulged in the agriculture. Majority of Indian society or majority of labor force was looking towards only one sector, that is agriculture. No modern technology, no production base. Getting it, sir? So this was again the very big issue, that how will you assimilate the aspirations of the aspirations of the young people or young mind of the society? You must provide them the adequate amount of jobs. How will you provide them jobs if the majority of your society is dependent on agriculture? Majority of your economic output is coming from the agriculture, from the primary sector. You have to invest in the secondary sector, and for investment in the secondary sector, you need a huge amount of capital. And India had no capital, very less capital. This is the economic challenge India was facing. Getting it, sir? On the other hand, when you talk on the social front, Indian society was very much obscurantist, superstitious. People were very much into the, the kind of irrational religious practices. People were following the bigotry. So taking people out of this was a very big challenge. To generating the scientific temper among masses was very imperative. And here comes the minds of our constitution makers. Here comes the minds of our forefathers, who aspire to become one of the nation which is united and which will be one day become a thriving state, which ultimately, giving respect to the scientific temper. Okay, and the same thing was added into the constitutional duties, constitutional part, the DPSPs. Scientific temper should be there. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he was very much into the scientific temper. He said it need to be developed. Okay, that's why he established the IITs. He said IIMs need to be there. The institution of excellence should be there, so that the young minds can use their energy in order to make India great again. Getting it, sir? So without compromising the traditional cultural value, also taking into consideration the modern liberal values, assimilating both and making the nation great again. This is what the aspirations of the Indian forefathers, Indian constitution makers are. Getting me? This is how things work. So economically, we were devastated. We need a lot of investment in our industries. Now, how to make our, in which direction our economy should go? Either we can follow the socialistic model, capitalistic model, but there was general apprehension from the capitalistic model. We know that East India Company and all our past is not so much win-win. That's why allowing some foreign companies to invest a lot in India and making India a colony again was not a very good option. That's why it was not accepted as a one of the best model. Socialism was again somewhere problematic because the state socialism was giving so much pressure on the state to decide the fate of the people. And a state that time lagging the adequate amount of resources. Socialism was also not a very good win-win situation. But yes, in a society like India, where there is a huge wealth disparity, majority of people are living in the abject poverty. Capitalism cannot be the option. Socialism can be the option, but with some modification. So ultimately, we adopted the mixed economy model, that some of the capitalistic aspect, some of the socialistic aspect, but our leaning was more towards the socialism. And we are having a very friendly relation with the USSR also. That was ideological. Okay. So we discussed about the foreign policy aspect of that time, the name and all. We'll discuss it later. But here again, the thing is economically that was the thing. The second part is social front. We are discussing the superstitious. Must go with the scientific temper. You must go with the modern liberal education, so that people can get education. All the factors of socialization need to be inculcated right values. Getting it, sir? So society need to be taken care of. Indian constitution is liberal. Indian society is not. Okay. So liberal values need to be inculcated among the masses. And this cannot be done in overnight. Today you are making the changes. You are you know doing the switch on, and next day everybody will be changed. It means it takes time. It's not easy to socialize masses. It takes time. So if we can think about it, then we can say it's a kind of long term challenge, or you can say it's a medium term challenge. It was not the immediate challenge. Okay, there was some immediate challenge also. The territorial security of India, territorial integrity of India. We have war with the Pakistan over the Kashmir issue. We had it. Now immediately after the partition, there was a communal Holocaust. Okay, there was a continuous riots throughout the India. This was the immediate challenge. The government must curtail the situation. Okay, government must curtail the situation, sir. The Muslims were killing Hindus, Hindus were killing Muslims all over India, especially in the borders along with the eastern and western Pakistan. So those sensitive, communally sensitive areas supposed to be taken care of. Okay, this was immediate challenge. Now the integration of the princely states are another challenge, because all the princely states got the opportunity under the Independence of India Act. They can join either Pakistan or India. So integration of princely state was another challenge. Okay, sir. So territorial integrity was challenged. The communal Holocaust was challenged. Okay. Poverty was again another challenge. That was immediate as well as midterm as well as long term challenge. Where poverty cannot be, you cannot handle the poverty in the single day. Multiple challenges. Getting it, sir? So these were some of the challenges which we are going to discuss today. Okay, like facts you might be aware of, facts you can read from the other sources. Okay, we'll discuss some of the analytical aspect of these things. Okay, sir. The newly born nation inherited a colonial economy deliberately designed to extract wealth, a deeply fractured society scared by the centuries of division and a fresh communal violence, and weak institutional structure unprepared for the self governance. Now this is also a very big challenge, the institutional structure of India. The British made institutional structure in such a way that without devolving proper power to the all levels of the administration, most of the power was in the hands of Britishers, very much centralized. So new institution surviving in a newly democratic country without having a administrative culture was a trouble. You must generate it. You must generate an administrative culture, that bureaucracy must perform the things under the political leaders, democratically chosen leaders. So this culture need to be inculcated. Now, this was a big challenge. Today we are seeing that every bureaucrat is working according to the set hierarchy with the efficiency. All the things are happening today. But this was not the scenario in the 1947-48. At that time, you must inculcate the right things, the right administrative hierarchy, the right culture. The most important part is the right culture, the sense of nationhood among the masses as well as the people who are serving to the state, to the government. Okay, this was a big challenge. So the weak institutional structure was also another troublesome. The British Raj had left behind not a functioning nation state, but rather a patchwork of territories, communities, administrative system that needed to be woven into the coherent whole. Did you get it, sir? Okay. What British left for us was not a nation state. Okay. we made it the nation state. Means the integration of the princely states, integration of the, what we did, whatever British gave us, we make four parts: part A, part B, part C, part D. We discussed it in a polity part. Okay, all the territories in the part A, there were provinces. In part B, there were princely states. In part C, there were commissioners' provinces. In part D, there were Andaman and Nicobar. So we divided these the territory which we got from the British, okay, administratively, into four parts: part A, part B, part C, and part D. Now these four parts, A, B, C, D, these four parts, we ultimately reorganized it. These parts in the 1956 State Reorganization Act 1956. We discussed about it, the linguistic aspect on the basis of which the ultimately reorganization happened. I think we already discussed it in our polity part, that Potishra Mallu and all that case of the Andhra Pradesh. We discussed it. So today our chief interest is to understand that that was not the territorial integrity which we got. We made it administratively functional. Okay, British never gave us administratively functional, the economy administratively functional administration. Okay, we made it. So this was the big challenge: how to make the country work administrative with the administrative efficiency, which is desirable. Okay, sir. So we are organizing them in the short term, medium term, and the long term. Okay, so let us discuss the immediate crisis. What were the immediate crisis we were facing? So many things. 1947 to 50, in the short run, in a 3 year span, what were the challenges we were facing? The first and the foremost challenge which we were facing was the partition and the refugee crisis. No doubt about it. Everybody knows the partition horror, the communal holocaust. Okay, mass killings, there were genocides, there were, continuously Muslims were attacking Hindus, Hindus were attacking Muslims. People were not ready for the partition actually. Politicians were. People were not ready. Politicians, they're in the political discourse, not among masses actually, but among the leaders. There was much clarity. There's a possibility of partition. So for last 6, 7, 8 years, there was a kind of discourse happening at that point of time that leaders were continuously exchanging ideas. There is a possibility of partition and something like that. So leaders were kind of mentally prepared, but people were not. Okay, so when ultimately the partition happened, both the communities, Hindus and Muslims, were blaming each other for the partition. Muslims were blaming Hindus, Hindus were blaming Muslims. Okay, so those Hindus who were living in Pakistan ultimately became the Islamic country. So Hindus who were living in Pakistan, so many Hindus, just they said we must go. Okay, if we will be in the minority in Islamic country, who will ensure our safeguard? So many Hindus just started leaving their all sort whatever they had, their property, and they started moving towards India. And so many Muslims who wanted to go to Pakistan, they left for Pakistan. Okay, so somewhere there was a sense of insecurity among the minority at both the places. Okay, today we have seen that in Bangladesh, there's so many Hindus who are continuously mob lynched, mob attacked. So again, the same situation is arising, that Hindus or the minority is not safe in a country which is Islamic country. Are you getting me? Bangladesh is also Islamic country. Pakistan is Islamic country. They are not secular countries. Bangladesh is also not secular. Okay, both the countries are not secular. So these two countries, the Hindus are somewhere in the trouble, sir. It is because those countries are somewhere following the theological ideas. They're not following the secularism. India, on the other hand, is a secular country. Means safeguarding the minorities in the country is part of Indian constitution. It's part of Indian culture. So somewhere you might have seen that some of the atrocities, or some of the cases of atrocities on the minorities in India also. There are some cases. But there is no systematic violence against the minority communities. Systematic violence is a different term. Getting it, sir? But yes, there are so many cases in which the minority has been targeted by the majority. And it happens whenever some kind of conservative people come into power. They might use a demagogue come into power. They might ask for, they don't rule with the reason. They don't rule with the right things. They don't rule with the right schemes for the welfare of the people. Rather, they rule with after evoking the emotions of the people. Okay, they talk about something. They talk about religion. They talk about caste. They talk about something which provoke the emotions of the people. Okay, rather than talking about the right issues. There is a term called demagogue. So it happens it can happen anywhere in the world. So that was the case after the 1947 partition, that Hindus and Muslims both were facing trouble and controlling this partition. And now it is not only about the killings of Hindus and Muslims. You must stop it with your policing system. That's the one of the aspect, the deterrence among them. Second is that so many people who are coming from Pakistan into India. Now Indian government have to resettle them. Those were refugees. They were coming to India because they might threatened in the might get threatened in the Pakistan. That's why they're moving towards India. Now those are supposed to be settled into India. Just think about it. Somebody having everything in the Lahore, but now he is coming to Delhi in order because he didn't decided that partition will happen. Decision was taken by the politicians, but ultimately the fate of this was happened to be with the person, okay, who is Hindu, who is living in Lahore, or somebody Abdul, who is living in Delhi, who is moving for Lahore. Are you getting me? This is how cross migration happened. In this cross migration, riots happened. So many people died. So many people died. Okay, sir. So people moving with the resources, whatever they have, with the possible mobility, they were putting the things which they can move with, and they are coming to India. Now everybody is in Delhi. Now somebody who is a very multimillionaire in the Lahore, having nothing in Delhi, because they cannot move their immovable assets, na? Okay, they cannot move their Haveli from Lahore to Delhi. They cannot. Okay, so they lost all these things. Now they are in Delhi. So those refugees need to be settled into India, and this was happening on both the front, East Pakistan front and West Pakistan front. On both the front, it was happening. So there was a big challenge for the government how to resettle them. So refugee crisis was there, and for settlement of the refugees, government was again lagging the resources. Huge amount of resources was required, sir. So some non-government organizations and some others are also trying to help government. You can get something. Getting it, sir? So this was the immediate crisis. It was the partition and the refugee crisis. Just read about it. It's very simple thing and very crucial thing. Like partition of India into India Bangladesh triggered India Pakistan triggered one of the largest mass migration in the human history. One of the largest mass migration. Okay, sir. Between 14 and 15 million people were displaced. 14 and 15 million, 1.4 to 1.5 crores people displaced across the newly drawn borders, often with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Okay, because whatever you cannot move with your immovable assets. Okay, so whatever you had, you had. Now you have to leave it. Okay, yes. Work board made afterwards. Work board came into existence after almost a decade. Okay, huh. Work board was also for that the property which Muslims left in India somewhere. So this was taken into consideration by the government. We'll discuss about it in that our NGO part. In work board, what work board do and what is the exit function. Okay. So here the part is this many people have been displaced. This was one of the largest mass migration in the human history. The violence was staggering. Communal rights claimed 2 lakh to 2 million lives. It's huge, sir. With exact figure still debated. Exact figure because both the governments, either India or Pakistan, don't want to reveal the real figures. Okay, somewhere there are disputed figures. The entire train carriages arrived at stations filled with the corpses. Yes, it happens. In reality, it happens. Okay, the train which is coming from Pakistan to India, India to Pakistan, full of corpses, full of dead bodies. Okay, yes, this is the reality. The new government faced the overwhelming task of providing shelter, food, and safety to the millions of traumatized refugees while preventing further bloodshed. So you have to stop both. You have to stop the bloodshed, you have to stop the riots, and you should also take into consideration or accommodate those people who are coming to India, sir. Getting it, sir? So this was the very big refugee crisis happened in India in the beginning. Beyond immediate humanitarian relief, humanitarian relief, you have to provide them shelter, you have to provide them food, you have to provide them everything, whatever is the basic necessity, provide them. Partition created complex legal and administrative challenges. Property dispute between those who fled and those who stayed required new framework. This was again problematic. Okay, so in Delhi area, if the Muslims are supposed to, leaving their homes, okay, when Muslims were leaving their homes, somebody just captured or confiscated that particular building. This belongs to me. Getting it? Now, some same happened with the Hindu in Lahore. The Hindus were just migrated to India. Their buildings or their immovable property have been captured by the locals there, Muslims. Again, there is a dispute. Okay, so this was again the legal dispute, like who will handle this, or either those who are migrating to Pakistan should be provided with some of the compensation for that property or something like that. So these kind of so many questions raised at that in that scenario. Okay, at that time of political discourse. Rehabilitation programs needed to be designed and funded. Need money. You need a lot of money. Perhaps the most profoundly, the psychological scars of partition, the trauma, the mistrust, and the fear created deep fissures in India's social fabric that would take generations to heal. Okay, so this Hindu-Muslim disharmony at that point of time, it created a deep mistrust among both the communities. It take a lot of time. Even today, there is a kind of mistrust among both the communities. Okay, so this takes time. Emotional is one which takes a while. Okay, it's trauma. Physically you might repair the things, but emotional is one which takes a while. So people's emotions, people who got traumatized, mistrust, and this mistrust is again part of the political culture, the political socialization. The values are transformed, values are transited from one generation to another generation. That mistrust is also transited. Mistrust also transit from one generation to other generation. So this is supposed to be taken care of, and this is hard to take care of, because India is a secular country, and there is again the Sarva Dharm Sadbhav, which is very hard to obtain in such scenario when there is a hidden or the deep mistrust. Getting it, sir? So this was the repercussion of that time. Getting it, sir? This was the very first issue, which is the immediate issue, the refugee partition and the refugee crisis. I hope you are getting it. The second is again the integration of the princely state. Yes, this was immediate challenge because all the princely state, got the provision that they can choose either Pakistan or India, or if they want to remain independent, they can remain independent. Okay, so this was a big task, again a big challenge, and at that time, Indian forefathers, especially the acting Prime Minister of India, actually the Prime Minister of India in the interim government, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay. So there were 565 princely states, nearly 565 princely states. Most of them ultimately joined India. Most of them joined India. Some of them said, no, we will not join India, or we will remain independent. Few of them were like, for example, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel is the main, craftsman of the architect of India at that time. Okay, with his adroitness, he was very much proficient enough to deal with the princely states. Okay, so he integrated the India. That's why he is considered as a modern architect of India. Okay, because all the princely states, most of the princely state became part of India, except few. With the few, persuasion didn't work. That's why he resort to some other means. For example, the military means. For example, Hyderabad, Junagadh military means has been used. Kashmir was negotiated, and ultimately the Treaty of Accession has been signed with the Maharaja Hari Singh. Okay, sir. So this was the thing. I think we already discussed it. Okay, so you have to read it. Integration of princely states. This was also one of the aspects. We discussed it already in our polity part. Okay, the communal harmony and law and order, no doubt about it. The partition violence shattered whatever communal peace existed. Okay, communal peace, or the seeds of communalism are sown by the Britishers in the very early phase of the 20th century. In 1909, under the Parliamentary reform, they gave you the communal representation. Okay, they started to strategically think about it post 1857. After the revolt of 1857, Britishers were largely, there was a popular public perception among Britain, okay, that first, that you cannot rule India without taking their opinion into consideration first. Second was that both Hindus and Muslims are fighting together. Somewhere they have a sense of oneness. This oneness need to be broken if you want to rule them. Okay, so post 1857, there was special incentives have been provided to the Hindus, and there were strategic or the systematic negligence of the Muslims. Okay, and after this, there were so many Muslim, conservative people who were incentivized or promoted by the Britishers, so that they can make things uh, mm, kind of they can create more disharmony among them. Okay, for example, the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, the Sir Syed Ahmad was came up with the Aligarh Muslim school. That thought was that Muslims should not participate with the Congress, because Congress is predominantly a Brahman party, and they will, a Brahman or Hindu party, they will not take care of Muslim interests. Muslims should not participate with the Congress. Muslims should rather focus on their economic security. They would rather focus on the job security. They prepare for examination, clear the examination, and look into their economic status rather than going after the nationalism which have no wings at that point of time. Getting it, sir? So there were some kind of understanding among the British that you cannot rule India when Hindus and Muslims are acting together. Okay, you must divide them, then you would be able to rule them. Then here comes the divide and rule. So in early 1858, they realized it, and they continuously tried to generate disharmony among both the communities. Getting it, sir? In 19056, there was Muslim League, All India Muslim League under the Aga Khan. Okay, in 1906, they divided the Bengal on the religious lines. Okay, in the 1916, there was a Hindu Mahasabha came into existence, right wing organization, Hindu right wing organization. Okay, so Hindu Mahasabha was propagating the interest of the Hindus, Muslim League on the other hand of Muslims. Getting it, sir? In 1925, a new organization came into existence, that is the RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Okay, who is the founder of RSS? Is the Keshav Ram Baliram Hedgewar, and some other prominent people were Madhavrao Sadasirao Golwalkar, MS Golwalkar, who is considered one of the most prominent, prominent ideologue of the RSS, who wrote the book The Bunch of Thoughts. Okay, so these were the organization which came into picture. In 1909, the British came up with the Morley-Minto reform, communal representation for the Muslims. Okay, in 1919, they provided communal representation to others also. Okay, in 1930s, there were so many prominent Muslim scholars who gave the idea of the two nation theory. Okay, the two nation theory, sir. Okay, the Allama Iqbal is one of them. Okay, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was one of them. Okay, Jinnah propagated it further for their own political interest. Okay, so there was a gulf between the Hindu interest and the Muslim interest, and this was done by the Britishers. Okay, so that deep mistrust ultimately, because the nations made on the basis of the religion only, the deep mistrust for um, furthered the interest of both the communities even after the independence. Okay, so the communal harmony and the law and order. Now this was the trouble. Partition violence shattered the whatever communal peace existed. There was very less communal peace, and the partition horror just destroyed whatever existed. Neighborhoods that had coexisted for generation turned into battlegrounds. Okay, people who were living in the neighborhoods, they were just fighting with each other on the basis of religion only. Okay, rumors and fears spread faster than authorities could contain them. Okay, it happens today also. The rumors spread very fast. Okay, so rumors spread very fast, and it was very difficult for the administration to curtail the disturbance which is going to be created by that rumor. So the new government faced the dual challenge of stopping ongoing violence and rebuilding the trust between communities. Now it's a dual challenge. Okay, first you have to stop the riot, and then you have to rebuild the trust among the communities who now saw each other as enemies. Police and military forces themselves affected by partition had to be reorganized and deployed to maintain the order. Both the police and military were deployed there in order to restore the normalcy. Right, sir? In 1948, the Mahatma Gandhi has been assassinated by a Hindu extremist. Paradoxically, helped restore some sense of national purpose and shame about the communal violence. Okay, so Gandhi's assassination was very much disturbing at that time for the political scenario of India. But somewhere, because Gandhi had huge legitimacy among Hindus and Muslims, and Gandhi has been assassinated by a Hindu orthodoxy. So somewhere a shame about the communalization of the country just occurred, and somewhere it helped. Gandhi helped even after death. Okay, although Gandhi is relevant even today, and Gandhi will be relevant for the upcoming time to come. Okay, but the deeper work of confidence building required sustained effort. Okay, some sort of things curtailed after Gandhi's death, but still there were again the protecting minority community need to be done. Okay, prosecuting the perpetrators of the violence regardless of religious affiliation and demonstrating that the new secular state would treat all citizens equally under law. It's also important. Okay, in India, Muslims were killed by the Hindus. So somewhere a sense of insecurity among the Muslims were at peak, and this insecurity must be eliminated, and this could be eliminated only with the help of the confidence building measures among the communities. Okay, because India was a secular country, so minority should not have a sense of insecurity in their mind. Okay, there are so many sayings. The many political scholars said any country, any democratic country, should always be judged by the level of protection or level of security its minority feel. Okay, think about the minorities. The minorities are protected and they are feeling safeguarded by the constitution or by the law. It means that community or that democracy is working in the right direction. Okay, some said it's minority, some said about the women. Okay, so this was the thing, the communal harmony and the law and order. Here comes the administrative vacuum. Now this was another challenge, we discussed about it. Okay, they came up with the bureaucracy. For a long period of time they were having a bureaucracy which was more or less serving the British interest, colonial interest, rather than taking care of its people. So British made administration to work not in a democratic manner, rather it was working in such a way it could benefit the British government in India. Okay, somewhere propagating or somewhere just taking care of the British interest. So in that case scenario, again the administration itself need to be overhauled. The administrators need to be inculcated with the values of the Indian constitution, or the constitution was in making, but still there was some sort of democratic understanding, some sort of liberal understanding. You must work in such a way. So the departure of British civil servant, military officers, technical experts created a sudden void in the governance capacity. So because Britishers were not allowing the Indians to be at the top positions. Now Britishers suddenly left, it means top position became vacant. Now who will fill this void? Again, there was a big challenge. You are supposed to conduct exam, or you're supposed to put people who should be there. You will nominate some people there. Meritocracy, positive discrimination, what kind of things? This void need to be filled. The Indian Civil Services, while experience, was understaffed and predominantly British at the senior level. There were ICS became open. ICS became open after a certain period. Okay, after a certain period, ICS became open in 1861. I think ICS became open. Indian Civil Service. Huh? Indian Civil Services. Okay. Today, what is IS? That was the ICS at that time. So Indian Civil Services became open in the under, I think, Council Act 1861. That open examination will happen. So there were some people, some Indians who cleared the exam, but they were very less. So they remain in India, but they were understaffed, kind of understaffed. The Indian Civil Services, all the top position of district collectors were empty, most of them. So who will fill the void? As British left, there was an urgent need to Indianize the bureaucracy. Now this is the right term. Bureaucracy was very much British, and that was also not British in the British sense, let me tell you. That was not British in the British sense. That was British kind of colonial sense. Okay, means you were not making the bureaucracy in India according to the principles which you are following in the Britain. No. In British bureaucracy, they were taking care of the people. In the Indian British bureaucracy or British Indian bureaucracy, They were taking care of the Britishers, not of the people. So there was a different bureaucracy. So you have to Indianize the bureaucracy. That was a big challenge. So Indianizing the bureaucracy, the police forces need to be Indianized. Very important part. The police was very brute over the protesters, over the nationalists who were doing the movement, national movement. Okay. So now this must be Indianized so that they can understand even if somebody is doing the protest against the government, that should be allowed. That should be allowed, and you should not use force indiscriminately over the protesters. And the armed services, because again the same condition with the armed services, all the top positions were held by the British. So you have to Indianize it while maintaining the continuity in the essential functions. Now it's very important. There is no teacher, but classes should not be harmed. Are you getting me? There is no teacher, but classes should be conducted. Because if you will start recruiting the teachers, then classes will not able to take place. Institute will be empty. In order to make it function, are you getting me? In order to make it function, if limited teachers are also taking classes, they must take class so that students' time should not be lost. Getting it? Same thing was happening. You have to recruit new people for the administration, and parallelly you have to take care of the administration. Okay, means you are recruiting, but on the same front, on the at the same time, you have to take care of the people. Okay, भैया इनका भी ध्यान रखना. This wasn't simply a matter of changing nameplates. It requiring training new administrators, establishing new chain of command, and building institutional memory almost from scratch, sir. Now that's very important aspect of administration in India. Okay, sir. Economic instability and the food crisis. This was again the immediate challenge. There was food crisis, sir. There was food crisis. Okay, we had the in 1959 we have the PL 480, I think, agreement with the United States of America. US President at that time, the Eisenhower, came to India. PL 480. That's a kind of wheat. We had the agreement with them because food scarcity was very acute in India at that time. So you have to take care of the economic instability as well as the food crisis. Partition devastated India's economy by disrupting establishing trade networks. Established trade network disrupted, dividing irrigation system and separating raw material source from the processing facilities because things changed. Something went to Pakistan, something in India. So that supply chain has been disrupted. Jute mills in Calcutta were suddenly cut off from the jute growing region of the Far East in the East Pakistan. Bangladesh is one of the largest jute product producer in the world. Okay, the jute mills are in Calcutta. So mills are in Calcutta and the production is happening in the Bangladesh. Well, not Bangladesh, East Pakistan, erstwhile East Pakistan. Punjab's canal irrigation system were divided. Industrial production had declined. Wartime inflation continued. Most critically, India faced severe food shortage in 47-48, with the threat of famine looming over the several regions. In 47-48, there was a huge crisis. Sir. Crisis of what? Food crisis, food shortage. The new government simultaneously managed immediate relief, importing food grains, controlling price, preventing hoarding. You know hoarding? Hoarding is like illegitimately or illegally accumulating a lot of anything, lot of commodity. For example, you are not allowed to accumulate the things. You are not allowed to accumulate the things unless you are a trader or something like that. You got the license of doing it. Okay, for example, I am just when the prices are low, I am accumulating a lot of wheat. Okay, now I have accumulated the thousands of kg of wheat. Now suddenly the price just going sky high. Now I am selling it. This is called hoarding. Called hoarding. Jamakhori is a word in the Hindi. Jamakhori. This is illegal in the essential service condition. Essential Commodity Act. Sorry. While beginning the work of economic reconstruction. So with the limited foreign exchange reserve, weak industrial base, foreign exchange reserve was very limited. Industrial base was very low. Every decision involved difficult trade-offs between competing urgent needs. Now you have limited resources. To in which direction you have to put your resources. Now this was the trouble. Either I have to put this in the administration or the food shortage or for the security of the country. Okay, that multiple needs and the resources were very limited, sir. The challenge was not just economic but also psychological. Yes, there was apprehension in the minds of people, building confidence that the new government could provide basic necessity and economic stability. Your people's mind need to be filled with the right positive atmosphere. Okay, no, we will survive. Okay, this government will survive. We will make a stable democracy. Minds need to be changed. Okay, sir. So these were some of the immediate challenges, five important immediate challenges government faced. Okay. Now let's discuss about some of the medium term challenges, the building the republic 50s to 70. Some of the things, some of the challenges which cannot be solved, which are issues cannot be solved in the immediate run. Mhm. So in medium term, there were several challenges. Like in medium term, you want to stabilize your administration. You want your economy to be, you know, enough capable to take into consideration the food production, industrial, production, to reduce the unemployment, to reduce the poverty. Poverty reduction cannot be the immediate challenge. You cannot reduce the poverty in the span of 1 hour, 1 year, 2 year. You cannot. It takes time. So once the immediate crises were contained, India turned to the transformative work of the nation building. Now, nation building is the big task. You have to build the nation according to the constitution which our forefathers gave us. Okay. The medium term challenges were about creating the lasting institutions, establishing India's character as a modern democratic state. You must announce yourself on the world stage. Yes, we are here. Okay. And how will you announce it? You will announce it only with making a proper democratic network at your functioning democracy at your place, sir. So modern democratic state and laying foundation of the future development, in which direction our polity, our constitution will go. These challenges required sustained efforts over decades and involved fundamental question about what kind of nation India would become. So in the first 2 decades, we were deciding in which direction we will go, internationally, nationally. Okay, we are designing our economy. We are designing so many things. Okay, so the first is the nation building and the political consolidation. It was very important, sir. Nation building and the political consolidation, because British gave us the territory in the fragmented part. We divided into 4 parts: A, B, C, D. Now the reorganization of the states was another challenge. Okay, making the political map of India, reorganizing the political map of India. The power was provided to the parliament. But on what basis state need to be reorganized? Now this reorganizing was a big challenge, because the secessionist tendency, the separatist tendency, okay, the economic disparity, the regional disparity, all things need to be taken into care. Okay, so the nation building and the political consolidation. The constitution came into effect on this day. Was a landmark achievement, creating world's largest democracy with a detailed framework for the governance. But drafting the constitution was only beginning, sir. The harder work involved the implementing the constitutional provision. Okay, so many people said, especially the constitution forefathers. Okay, if the constitution is great, but the people who are implementing it are not, it ultimately became a futile document. Okay, if constitution is great and the people who are implementing it are bad, then ultimately it will become a futile document. And if constitution is considered as futile, but people who are implementing it are literally people with the zeal, then it might become a good document. Okay, so it is ultimately how constitution works rather than what constitution is. Okay, it's important. Okay, so in order to establish the constitutionalism in the country, or the constitution work, this was the part. The harder work involved implementing the constitutional provision, establishing the actual functioning of the parliamentary democracy. actual functioning of the parliamentary democracy. You must make your democracy function in the beginning phase. When the functioning take place, then automatically you will take care of the substantial aspect of the democracy. Okay, the last man in the line need to be heard only when the last man in the line is allowed to vote. So first let him vote, then take their voice into consideration. This is what democracy should look like. Okay, sir, substantive democracy. First you will become the functional democracy, then become the substantive. So parliamentary democracy and building the credible institution like the election commission, a very important part. Election commission should be there, who is responsible for conducting free and fair election throughout the length and breadth of the country. Okay, so election commission, independent election commission. Supreme Court, ultimately under Article 32. Okay, Supreme Court under Article 32 is the protector of the fundamental rights of the people. Constitutional remedy, Article 32. That's why it is considered soul of the Constitution. So Article 32, the Supreme Court should be there. Okay, Supreme Court taking care of the rights of the people. And the independent bureaucracy. Bureaucracy should not be pressurized by the executive, by the political executive. Bureaucracy itself is the executive. Okay, it's a permanent executive and there is a political executive. So political executive or the politician should not intervene in the working of the bureaucracy. They will intervene in the working of the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy have to work according to them only. Your permanent executive always function under the political executive. But the point is the things or the hierarchy or the functioning should be according to the legal and constitutional provision rather than by the discretion of the politicians. Okay, sir. So this need to be done. Supreme Court is ultimately ensuring the fundamental rights of the people. And we know what are the rights. Rights are nothing but the claims of the people. Rights are nothing but the claims of the people. And there are the system of rights in any constitution in order to limit the power of the governance organs. Okay, if you want to limit the power of legislature, if you want to limit the power of executive, if you want to limit the power of anybody who is involved in the activity of governance, you provide rights to the people. You provide rights to the people. And this ultimately ensure the constitutionalism. Constitution is one thing. Having constitution does not automatically ensure the constitutionalism. Constitutionalism means somewhere the power holders must be limited or confined by something. And this confinement or this limit comes with the rights of the people. This is how the right obligation things work. Okay, sir. So when people have rights and there is a independent judicial body which are ensuring the rights of the people, that ultimately ensure the constitutionalism in the country. I hope you are getting it. Ultimately ensure the constitutionalism in the country. So this is the thing. A particularly contentious challenge was the linguistic reorganization of the state. We discussed about it. Immediately after the implementation of the constitution and even before the implementation of the constitution, there was a continuous demand for the linguistic states. In the early 1930s, the Congress itself, at that time Indian National Congress, it organized its provincial units on the basis of language. In 1930s, in early 1930s. So there was some sort of understanding among the politicians that yes, it's better to reorganize the states on the basis of language, and it gives you stability. It gives you stability. Okay, sir. So it gives you stability. But the point is, India got partition on the basis of religion. Now, immediately after the partition on the basis of religion, there was a communal holocaust, there was a communal riots on the basis. What is communal riots? On the basis of religion only. So there was some sort of anticipation among the so many intelligentsia that if we reorganize the states on the basis of language, that ultimately might hamper the unity of India. There is a possibility that language-based sentiment might come, in form of violence. There is a possibility that would open the Pandora's box, that every small language people will started asking for their own state. So in that case, there is a possibility riots might take place. So somewhere there was kind of apprehension among the politicians or apprehension among the top-notch leaders of that time, whether we should go with the linguistic partition or not. And there were several committees has been made. We discussed about it. Okay, the first committee was, which was the first committee? S.K. Dhar committee. Okay, then comes the Fazal Ali commission was very late. Okay, that was JVP committee. It was made by the Indian National Congress, and both the committees, the Dhar committee and the JVP committee, both rejected, prima facie rejected the linguistic reorganization. But ultimately, in 1953, the Pottishramalu case happened. That he died on the 53rd day of hunger strike. Okay, he was asking to make the Andhra Pradesh out of the Madras province. Okay, and in the very hasty manner, the central government came up with the reorganization of the Andhra Pradesh in 1953. Now here comes a new committee, the Fazal Ali Commission. The Fazal Ali Commission was about to look into the conduciveness of the linguistic reorganization of the states, and it looked into it, and ultimately it said that on the basis of language as well as on the basis of the administrative convenience, the states need to be reorganized. And in 1956, all the part A, part B, part C, part D has been abolished, and India came up with the 14 states and the 6 UTs. And for the first time, the concept, concept of the political unit called Union Territory has been came into picture. Concept of the Union Territory in 1956, the 14 states and the 6 UTs, sir. Okay, we discussed about it. So here comes the linguistic reorganization, the Pottishramalu's fast unto death for Andhra Pradesh, and ultimately we did it. In 1956, we did the state reorganization. Okay, sir. Here comes the second long-term issue. So nation building was one. Now this, according to Ramchandra Guha, the linguistic reorganization gave us a sense of stability. Today, states are mostly reorganized on the basis of language only. Okay, Tamil Nadu is Tamil language, Andhra Pradesh Telugu language, Karnataka Kannada language, Kerala Malayalam language, okay, Gujarat Gujarati language, Maharashtra Marathi language. So most of the India's states having their own language. So states are reorganized on the basis of language. Okay, so today India having a sense of stability only because of that reorganization. It was not problematic. Actually, it gave us India the strength and becoming, a uniting force to India. Getting it, sir? The second issue or the long-term issue was the economic development and the industrialization. No doubt, no doubt, very important, because India's secondary sector was almost in the graveyard, almost in the graveyard. So economic development and industrialization. In the 50s, India was desperately poor, with per capita income among the world's lowest, life expectancy under 32, and over 80% of population engaged in the agriculture, which we discussed. Okay, almost 80% of your workforce is engaged in the agriculture, and the productivity was not very high. Okay, that's why the per capita income was very less, and the life expectancy was under 32. Getting it? It's very less life expectancy under 32. It means the standard of living of people was very abysmally low. Okay. So the Nehru and his team chose a path of state-led planned development. We chose it. We chose the planning. Okay. We said no to the capitalistic economy. We said yes to the command economy, but in the mixed mode. In the mixed mode, was very much into the command part, and that's why the planning came. Establishing the Planning Commission in 1950, launched a successful five-year plan on the Soviet lines, sir. Strategy emphasized heavy industries and infrastructure. In the first 5-year plan, we came up with the Herod-Domer model. I hope you people remember Herod-Domer model. Okay, the capital output ratio. And the second 5-year plan, we came up with the Nehru-Mahalanobis model. We discussed it. Okay. So Bhakra Nangal Dam, which was the Nehru called the temples of the modern India. Nehru is very much into the scientific temple. He said we need big industries. Nehru was believer of the trickle down theory. He said that when big industries will work, when the very big companies will be made, automatically people will get employment, and the development will trickle down to the lowest strata of the society. Sir. This is what Nehru believed. That's why Bhakra Nangal Dam, and he said something like this. Okay. So industrialization of the India was the another medium-term challenge, and India did it in the 20 years. India was, very much into it. Here comes the social transformation and reforms. No doubt, Indian society was obscurantist. You have to change the mindset of the people. Okay, you have to reform the aristocratic mindset of the people. People were still aristocratic. The feudal mindset was very much engraved into their attitudes. to change it. The Indian social structure was marked by the deep inequalities, caste discrimination, huge caste discrimination, sir, gender oppression, feudal land relations, and widespread illiteracy. You have to work on education, you have to work on health, you have to work on inculcating right liberal values among masses, the value of equality, the value of freedom, value of liberty, beginning with the constitutional abolition of the untouchability. In Article 17 of the Indian Constitution, the fundamental right, abolition of untouchability, and establishing the reservation, the affirmative actions. We know it, okay. We know the concept of reservation. We discussed. The concept of reservation first came into India in the 1928, and the Justice Party, which erstwhile Justice Party, which became the DMK afterwards, it came up with the communal GEO in the 1928 for the medical seats or education seats in the Madras province. Okay, and this was the same thing which was mentioned in the Champakam Dorajan case in the 1950. Okay, which ultimately, consequently, came up with the first constitution amendment in 1950. Okay, so this 1928 first time the reservation, concept of reservation came into the government jobs. It was Justice Party which came up with this idea. Now, after that, in 1950, the first time the constitution itself mentioned about the Lok Sabha seats and the Vidhan Sabha seats which are reserved. I think it is Article 82. Article 82, Article 82, I think. Okay, that Lok Sabha seats are reserved for the SC and ST. There is no OBC reservation in the Lok Sabha. There is no EWS reservation in the Lok Sabha. And the constitution itself mentioned about the SC ST reservation in the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha. Okay. Now the point is, it is subject to periodic approval. It is for 10 years only, and it was consequently amended 6th time, I think. Okay, 6th time it is amended, and recently it is amended in 104th Constitution Amendment Act in 2020. Okay, 2020. Okay, 104th 2020, and it will be in application till 2030. Okay, then subsequent amendment will again required. Now the point is, the government jobs in the central government and the state government, SC, ST, OBC and EWS, providing the reservation to SC, ST and OBC in the government jobs is not written in the constitution. It is not a constitutional right, neither a fundamental right. It is a government prerogative, okay, and it does not need the periodic approval. Okay, once the government came up with the GEO, they don't need to approve it periodically. Lok Sabha seats and the Vidhan Sabha seats for the SC, ST need the periodic approval, parliamentary approval. Okay, sir. State government can come up with their separate GEO for providing the reservation in the state service jobs. For central service, central government have their own GEO. Okay, this is how things work. So this was the part. The land reforms and zamindari. I think we discussed about the land reform in the recent classes. But land reforms, okay, because most of the lands have been, taken over or confiscated by the landlords or the zamindars in the British times. So many of the peasants became tenants. Okay, so if that situation would be reversed, then what will happen? Again, the lands will go to the peasants. That will ensure their livelihood, because 80% of Indian population was dependent on the agriculture. So you must change your structure in that way that land reforms must happen. And land was a state issue under the constitution. Land was a state issue under the constitution, the Schedule 7, 3 list. This was the state issue. So state have to take into consideration the land reform. So central made some kind of guideline, but the state have to do it ultimately. Some states did it. For example, West Bengal and Kerala did it very well. They are very good examples of the land reforms. So land reforms and zamindari abolitions. Also expansion of education received priority. The new universities, IITs. The first IIT started in which city? It was IIT Kharagpur in the 1951, and then the new IITs also came into picture. Okay, like I think 1956 the IIT Bombay came, IIT Kanpur came. In 1962 I think IIT Delhi came. Okay, Delhi is quite a bit late. Okay, and then continuously new IITs have been made. So there is a IITs Act 1961 under which all the IITs have been regulated. For IIMs there is an act in 2007 or 17 I think. Okay, for Central University there is a different act. So central universities are governed with different act. The IITs do not have different act for each IIT. There is a single act which governs all the IITs. That is 1961. IIMs also governed under a single act. That act is 2007, I think, IIM Act. So IIT Act, IIM Act and NIT Act. NITs, all NITs are governed under a single act. All IITs are governed under a single IIT Act. All IIMs are governed under a single IIM Act. Central universities, I think, don't govern under a single act. I think there are different acts for central universities. I think, as far as my knowledge is concerned, you have to check it. Okay. So many IITs came, IIMs came. Okay. First IIM was in IIM Ahmedabad or Calcutta, I think. ACA, both in the same year. Ahmedabad and Calcutta. Two I. It was in 1961 or 62. First IIM in India. Okay. Ahmedabad and Calcutta both in the same year. So he was very much into it. You must make mind more bright, more scientific. Okay, and they will become the asset of the whole of the country. Here comes the new national integration or the creating the national identity among masses. Okay, must generate the sense of nationalism, the regional cultures, unity with diversity. Okay, fostering national consciousness. Okay, national consciousness can be generated on the basis of so many things. Okay, you can come up with the songs. Yes, mile sur mera tumhara to sur bane hamara. Have you heard this song? Now this song is generating nothing but the national, the oneness among the masses. The multiple languages have been used. All the scheduled languages of that time have been used in this particular song. Okay, it's sung by whom? Pandit Bhimsen Joshi. Okay, was Bharat Ratna, and it's what created by the Asghar Khan. So this was the thing. Okay, have you heard about it? Okay, there are so many songs which were ultimately creating सुन मेरे मुन्ना सुन देश में एका रहे प्यार की गंगा बहे. This was also one of the song. So this creates a sense of national. The movies were made. मेरे देश की धरती सोना उगले उगले हीरे मोती. Okay, अपनी आज़ादी को हम हरगिज झुका सकते नहीं, सर कटा सकते हैं लेकिन सर झुका सकते नहीं. These kind of songs. Okay, music has been used, short movies has been used, so that people can have a sense of oneness among them, rather than creating a gulf between the communities, which is nowadays very common. Okay, just using the cinema in order to create gulf rather than making people unite. Okay, so this was used by our nationalist leaders. So this involves managing the secessionist tendencies such as Naga insurgency beginning in the 1950s. Okay, Naga insurgency was very much famous because there were separate groups. NSCN is another group, and there were some other groups who were very much into the insurgents act against the state itself. Okay, so I think Nagaland Accord happened in 1963. Okay, 1963 Nagaland became state. 1963, I guess. 1963 Nagaland Accord happened. Addressing regionalism, demand for the greater state autonomy. There are two things. One is the autonomy, one is the separatism. Okay, if you are demanding autonomy, you are not demanding that you want to secede away from the India itself. No, you are demanding more autonomy within this structure. Getting it? One is this. This is the autonomy. Second is secessionism. Secessionism means you want to secede away from this. Like Khalistan is a secessionism. Getting it? This Nagaland is not secessionism actually. They want more autonomy. So autonomy is different. That's why under the Indian Constitution, Article 371, Article 371, Article 371 come up with the provisions which provide autonomy to many states. Okay, 370 is also there. 371 is particularly important. Let's talk about autonomy to the states. Okay, so the Naga insurgency and all these things. Naga insurgency. Now Hindi language was again a very big issue. People in the South India were very much against the imposition of the Hindi. Okay, people were in South India were very much against. That's why we come up with three language formula. And under the Article 350, 351, we came up with the idea that Hindi need to be promoted. But on the other hand, we were also very much sure that Hindi and English both will be used as official language of India. Even today, India do not have any national language. We don't have any national language. We have official language. and we have two official languages, Hindi and English. Okay, English is a link language because Hindi cannot be imposed on the South Indian states. That's why many South Indian states follow their own native language. That is their rights. And English act as, because India is a federal country, so English act as a link language between the center and the state. Under the new education policy, we have the three language formula. Even three language formula was suggested at that time also, and it was accepted also. Okay, so language based differences were also there. Here comes the defense and the external security. Okay, the long term, ultimately you have to increase your defense capability, because India was a friendly country surrounded by not so friendly neighbors. Pakistan on the one hand, Pakistan on the two hand actually, because East and West Pakistan both were there. Okay, although a threat was coming from the West Pakistan only. Okay, East Pakistan was vulnerable. China was threat. Okay, in the initial phase of India was not considering China as a threat. Okay, we are very much into having a very win-win situation with the China. We are thinking of having a very good relation, but ultimately picture became gloomy, and in 1962 war happened. Okay, so this point is defense and external security. You have to now let me tell you a very important and very less known fact, which is usually not discussed in the intellectual domain. The point is, in the initial phase of India, Indian government or the Indian National Congress leaders were not very much into making your military or army very strong in the initial phase. They said, no, we are not going to be part of any rivalry, and we are very peaceful country. I am nijo paroveti garnaya lagu chetsam udar charitanam vasudev kutumbakam. We believe in this philosophy. Okay, that's why Nehru just came up with the Shanti ke Kabutar, that we are a peace loving nation. But the point is, we are peace loving, not others. So expansionism was a possibility. So in the initial phase, Indian policies were not very much inclined towards spending more and more money on the defense forces. Okay, and India always wanted that defense forces should always be under the civil government, and this culture India wanted to establish, and it is somewhere very fruitful today. Okay, because when you look at Pakistan, in Pakistan their armed forces are very much free, and they are not work they are constitutionally they have to work under the civil government, but in practice they do not work under civil government. Civil government, if do not go according to the army's choices, they will topple the civil government, they will make somebody else, or they will reconduct the election. Okay, so somewhere the main power holders in Pakistan are in the army and ISS. That's why the civil government do not have so much to say. Okay, the grants which is coming from the international organization in order to take care of the people, that grant has been diverted to the operations of the ISI and their army. Getting it, sir? So this was the trouble with Pakistan, because Pakistan was very much into that their army should be very much strong. And today the problem is that their army is very strong and the civil government is very less strong. That's why they're democratically not very stable country in the world. Indian leaders were very much aware about it. They said, no, army need to be empowered, but not that much empowered that they will topple the civil government somewhere. Okay, although this is not discussed in general in the political discourse, but this was the part which I have read. Okay, so the point is, Indian government was in the beginning, first 2 decades, was not very much into it. But after the 1962 war, China war, the perception changed, and India started to invest more and more in the army build-up. Okay, and initially we got help from the USSR, no doubt, and after the 70s, Indira Gandhi and some other plans have been started, that India started indigenous production of the defense capacities and the weapons also. Okay, still India is one of the largest importer of the weapons in the world today. Okay, India import uh, a lot of I can't tell you the exact amount, but that amount is equivalent to the GDP of so many countries, not a small countries, but kind of okay, big countries. So India import a lot today. Again, this relevance is required that Indian Army is very strong enough today. India's defense forces are strong enough today to take care of the any kind of force which is being used upon India. Okay, sir. So today Indian Army is adequately strong, and India is a nuclear power today, and this somewhere gives you a very virtual um, kind of dominance in the world. Okay, India is among the 8 countries which have the nuclear weapon. Okay, that's why India cannot be Venezuela. Okay, this is one. There's no doubt we have the nuclear weapon. Okay, and that gives the some sort of deterrence to the other countries. Okay, but on the other hand, Pakistan also have nuclear. So somewhere it is a nuclearization of the South Asia. That's a different thing. So this is the defense and the external security. Okay, sir. So we did a lot of work on it, and that's it for today. We'll discuss tomorrow some more things. Day after tomorrow some more things, and that would be it. We won't discuss much. Okay, you have to read on your own. That book is very good. Now the long-term structure we'll discuss. Bye bye.